Have you ever been in a room when something totally unexpected happens? Like when someone drops a plate in a quiet restaurant, or when the fire alarm goes off during a meeting. Everyone freezes, right? Heads turn, heart rates spike. Well, that's what we get today in Acts chapter 2. Folks, thanks for joining me as we walk through the book of Acts together. And here's my prayer. As you read about the story of the first church in Acts, my prayer is that you will uncover a new and a fresh appreciation for what it looks like to follow Jesus. Because in the book of Acts, we're given this vivid picture of the first 30-some years of the church. It's raw, it's unpolished, idealistic. It was a church that was willing to do anything to widen the circle. So today, we're looking at Acts chapter 2, verses 1 through 13. Verses 1 and 2 say, "They were all together in one place. Suddenly, a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven." I love that word, suddenly. They weren't in the middle of leading a worship service or a Bible study. They weren't hosting a conference on how to start a global movement. They weren't at school getting their PhD in biblical studies in order to prepare to launch the church. No, it says they were just everyday, ordinary people who were together. And then, bang! The wind blew, it got deafeningly noisy, it got chaotic. And in the midst of it all, verse 4 says, all of them were filled with the Holy Spirit. They weren't pastors or priests or prophets. They weren't any of the religious elite. None of them were there. They were ordinary people, fishermen, skeptics, doubters, people afraid, people who a few weeks earlier were hiding behind locked doors after Jesus' crucifixion. And then in verse 6, it says something fascinating. When they heard this sound, a crowd came together in bewilderment, because each one heard their own language being spoken. And that's a miracle, isn't it? The miracle isn't the noise, it's not the wind, it's not even the cacophony of different languages or voices. It's that people heard the message. They understood it. They heard it in their native language, and it finally made sense. It actually penetrated their hearts. Have you ever noticed that when people disagree today, the instinct is to just turn up the volume, louder opinions, bigger platforms, more heat, more patronizing and polarizing rhetoric. But here, God doesn't shout people into submission. He speaks so intentionally, so tenderly, personally, that each person says, wait, I understand this. Imagine for a minute that you're walking into a crowded international airport where dozens of languages are being spoken all around you. It's overwhelming. But then across the noise, you hear someone call your name, and you hear it in a good old Midwestern accent. Instantly, what happens? Your head turns. You feel seen. That's how the story of the church starts. That's what this is about. In a chaotic, noisy world, God doesn't create more confusion. The Spirit creates understanding. Jerusalem is packed. People are there from everywhere, different cultures, different backgrounds, different politics. It's not neat, it's not controlled. But in the midst of all that, the church is born, not through force, but through Spirit-filled people who speak about what God has done in ways that others can actually hear. So here's my question that I'd like to leave you with today. In our loud world, as followers of Jesus, are we just adding more noise, or are we listening deeply enough to others so that we can speak a word of hope into their lives in ways that actually resonate with what's going on in their hearts?